Today we're going to be going over a Necron Blade variant that probably isn't talked about enough. Before we do get into the video, if you haven't already joined the Discord and you're interested in doing so, it's linked in the description as always. You should join, we've got some giveaways going on over there, so just get involved. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the video. I hope you all do enjoy. So the sword in question today is the Estrella. Now this is probably the least talked about Necron Blade variant, and it is primarily a tank weapon. As you can see, one of its main abilities is basically a defense buff, along with the plus 1011 defense stat within dungeons, which is pretty mad. So you might be thinking, well, how is this better than a Hyperion, considering it's a tank weapon and it's not a mage weapon? Explain. Now obviously not everybody's going to agree with what I'm about to say, but you know, I'm going to say it because I think it's true. If you are a lower kata level, and you do struggle to survive in whichever floor it is that you're doing, obviously with floor 7 or master mode, and you play mage and you currently have a Hyperion, maybe if you died a little bit too much, why don't you try the Estrella? Granted, the Hyperion is going to do more damage. I'm not debating that fact whatsoever, but this still does an awful lot of damage with the Wither impact on, and obviously you're going to be able to survive a lot more. Then you might ask, well, why don't you just use a blue whale pet? And what I would say to that is, majority of the time when people have survivability issues, it's not the health which is an issue, it's usually the defense, and in this case it only does give you 200 health, which is not really a massive buff. The other option is a Yeti pet. The problem with this is if you're being mage, then realistically you're not going to get a massive defense buff because you're not going to have a lot of strength to actually convert it into the defense. So you're a little bit stuck in that sense. Now, one thing I do want to say is this isn't actually my sword. I borrowed it off one of the mods in the Discord, Zenq, so I appreciate it. And also he's lent me his full mage set as well, just to do this video. So yeah, I appreciate that. So we've got our 3/4 storm and wither goggles equipped. We've got our sheep pet. It's time to do a damage test outside of dungeons. Now I know this is pretty much pointless because Necron Blades aren't great outside of dungeons. But we're just going to do it for the sake of it, then we'll jump into a dungeon. Okay, so the left click ability does 58k, which is obviously quite poor, but that's really not what you're going to use it for. And it does 473k. Obviously that's gonna scale in dungeons, and yeah, I think it's time to try it out. Now, one thing I do want to say is, number one, my catacombs level isn't very high. I'm only catacombs 27. And I never play mage, so I'm only mage 21, so realistically the damage that I'm going to be doing is not going to be very high. So we're in a floor 6, pretty much just to test the damage, and yeah, let's see what we do. So 9 million, 9 to 14 million, obviously this will scale the more enemies that are around, so yeah, as you can see I'm doing a decent amount of damage. Obviously this is going to be quite good for clearing. The only downside is to this setup is I am quite slow, as you can probably see. I could probably sort that out. One more thing that I do want to say is my talismans are optimised for actual berserk damage. So they're not optimised for ability damage or anything like that. So the damage that I'm doing is probably not very high whatsoever. So I'd probably say this is where this setup shines the most on this floor. Like, just look at this. Literally decimates everything. And that's literally... well, that was that, but it literally just obliterates everything. It's just crazy. Look how much damage I'm doing. This is probably not even that much, to be honest, compared to what it could do, but nevertheless, it's pretty mental. Yeah, it literally just shreds through anything, and I'd probably say if you didn't have that defense, and you weren't exactly too geared up, or basically if you weren't too much of a high catacombs level, then you actually might, you know, find it a bit difficult to survive, considering literally everything's hitting you and targeting you. So yeah, it literally is just an obliteration machine. To be honest, it doesn't really do a massive amount of work to these, but to the terracottas it's crazy. Well, we didn't get a giant sword, but that's not the point. So all in all, the Estrella is a very, very versatile weapon, and when used as a mage weapon it really can do some work. I feel like this setup is actually really useful just purely because, like, mage armor and mage setups in general usually are quite squishy, and I feel like a lot of people, unless they're quite high kata level, will probably have the problem, you know, of dying. I'm not saying you're invincible if you use this weapon, but what I'm saying is you're giving yourself a much better chance. And obviously within dungeons it's one thing doing damage and it's another thing being able to survive. Like, you surely want to be able to get the survivability part down before you actually start thinking about the damage. I don't know, that's just my opinion, but I think this is very viable. And these weapons are pretty much the same price as well. The Hyperion, obviously this isn't in anywhere near as much demand, therefore there's not as many on the market, but they're roughly the same price realistically. At the end of the day, if you do have a Hyperion and you did want to test this, it's not really that expensive to change it to an Estrella and change it back if you don't like it. So I'd probably just say give it a go. I mean, to be fair, if you don't have the problem of surviving, then it is pointless because you will do more damage with a Hyperion. You know, that's the fact. But you know, if you are struggling to survive, then I'd say just give it a go. Other than that, I've only ever used a Hyperion for like half a dungeon run before, and this pretty much, I mean, it pretty much is a Hyperion just with more defense. It's really fun to use. So if you're considering, you know, buying a Necron's Blade and you want to be mage and you're a lower caster, then try it out. Anyway, this is going to be the end of the video. I hope you all did enjoy. The new series will be coming out tomorrow. I'm not going to spoil it, but in the Discord you might have already caught on. Like I said, this is going to be the end of the video. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.